Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. So I am out running a couple of errands, and I'm gonna superimpose this picture as a great example because I was sitting here, I was actually enjoying my coffee. They've changed to the Christmas cups now, and I was listening to some YouTube channels that I enjoy while I was drinking my coffee. I like to kind of do things at my own pace nowadays. I don't rush when I'm out and about and I have things to do. I just kind of go leisurely, you know, when I can. Obviously, sometimes we can't. We have days where we can't do that. But and I saw this scene in front of me, and I'm going to share it with you. And it just spoke to me very, very much. And basically, I'll drop it in here. You're going to notice that it looks like there's multiple trees here, or at minimum 2 trees here. And I'm talking about the trees that don't have any leaves. And when you first look, it's kind of like the way I saw it was there's a tree on the left. But as I started to study it, I realized it's just a really crisp shadow, you know, with very defined edges. And the funny thing is, so the shadow's on the left and the real tree's on the right. And yes, it's partially hidden by that bush, but you can see a little bit of it. And if you look at the tree on the right, it kind of blends in with the background too, but it's illuminated by the sun. Because we're nearing sunset now. It's 4 o'clock roughly. And so this tree on the right is illuminated. It's made lighter. And the one on the left is obviously darker and more defined. And so it's really easy to look at something like this and say, or just immediately have it register in your mind, rather, that, excuse me, I'm sorry, I've got some allergies going on here, that the tree on the left is the tree, you know, and maybe there's another tree on the right or whatnot, but in actuality, it takes a little bit of effort to look and see the difference, you know. Where's the real tree? Where's the actual tree? And I thought, this is great. This is certainly a message that's revealing itself to me, okay? And so I'm going to share what comes to mind for me, because this has started to be my experience for, I don't really know how long now. It's just been a gradual progression. But my experience has started to, you might say, morph into or transform into one where, you know, when things that are very unsettling happen to you and shocking, when those things happen to you, it's kind of like the shadow part of life in general, the negative aspects of life in general, become more amplified, and they tend to get your attention more so. And I think that there's a good reason for that. I mean, I've heard many people talk about this too, and that is, you know, we're hardwired to remember particular tough situations because it's a survival type thing that's automatic within our own mind. And so after these crazy things we might experience, we may in fact just notice things that seem even dangerous or scary to us more so, okay? And again, it's to kind of keep us on guard. We're made that way on purpose. And that's something too that I've learned to not fight against, but to trust just the way God made us, you might say, you know, instead of immediately saying like, oh, I shouldn't be upset about this, or I shouldn't be getting tensed up about this or that. What's wrong with me? Well, instead of just immediately blaming yourself, I think we need to work through that and start to trust, you know, maybe our body's speaking to us. There's a part maybe in our subconscious mind that's trying to alert our conscious mind, like, hey, hang on a second, this person's shady, you know, for example. So, and that may manifest via tense shoulders or something like that, a headache. And so once you start to trust, it's not as simple as just trusting yourself. That's not the way I see it. But trusting this really, I would call it a sacred mechanism or a holy type mechanism inside of us that God planted there on purpose. And so it's not as surface level as trusting yourself. And I'm not blaming anybody that says that. That's not a bad thing to say. But it's more than that. It's like if you look deeper than that, it's rooted and grounded in more than just that. It's that too. But more so on a deeper level, it's trusting that God part inside of you, your instinct, whatever you want to call it. And that's why I think sometimes we can look at nature and it absolutely seems supernatural. You know, one of the things that has always fascinated me, I love to watch geese when they're flying, like a big flock, you know. And if you ever notice, really just any kind of flock of birds, as an example, when they're all together, how in the world can they all turn on a dime at the same time? And a school of fish is the same way. They can all be going this way and all turn like in unison. There's no lag time or delay whatsoever. It just feels magical, doesn't it? And I know that there's unseen forces at work, like magnetism with regards to these birds that migrate and stuff. They're in alignment with that, which is just the coolest thing ever. But who's to say we don't have that kind of stuff going on inside of us too, but we've just, I don't know, lost the knowledge about it. I think sometimes when you look back on teachings from old cultures, it's sad to me that they're mocked and ridiculed and dismissed and all these other things, patronized. They're looked at in a very condescending manner, because it reads to us like their practices and way of life and beliefs reads to us a lot of times like they're just, you know, out of their minds. They're crazy. They've lost it. They're or maybe they're just ultra childlike and never matured and beyond fairy tales and things like that. But how do we know that for sure? You know, I feel like if a culture finds something important enough to preserve in stone, for example, then there's a reason for it. And maybe we just have to make the adjustment to truly understand what they're getting at. Because I think there's a lot of symbolism there and stuff too, that's meant to transcend language barriers, okay? And make it, you know, and be preserved throughout time. But so that's why I like, you know, obviously, if you've watched a lot of my videos, I focus a lot on the numinous, what I call the numinous. And I think the first time I heard that word was reading my favorite book, Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. She describes, you know, the supernatural spiritual world as being numinous. And that's a cool word to research and look up the origins of too. And so I absolutely not just believe, but via experience over a long period of time, I can confidently say that I know that there is something more than meets the eye within each of us. And, you know, people are going to interpret that in many different ways. And that's fine. You know, to each their own is how I see it. I'm not the kind of person that I feel like, you know, I'm going to just force my perspective on someone else. I just don't do that kind of thing. Because it's a choice. We all have a choice in what we believe, and if we decide to research or not, or just, you know, trust other people and not check on it or whatever. It's just a choice. But I've always had a tendency to research. That's been my hobby. If I could say there's been one hobby of mine that has lasted me pretty much my whole life, it's been learning. I love to learn. I remember even being in college, it was never about like, I've never been into like partying and being crazy and stuff. No, I was very studious. I think you call it studious. Always. And I loved it. It was fun to me. And it was not like about being top of the class or just, you know, an ego thing whatsoever. It has been a genuine love for learning. And that has never faded. All these years, it remains just as strong today as it did when I was a teenager. And so Boy, I got way off track. What am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is, I was talking about believing versus knowing. Yeah, I can say that I have lived enough and had enough experiences happen in my life that I confidently believe, or you may say no, that there's more than what meets the eye in terms of how everything works together in this reality, including our thoughts about things, what kind of drives us and motivates us to make the decisions that we do, you know, the gut feelings we have. And, you know, life is the greatest teacher, obviously. They say that hindsight is 20/20, you know, for a reason. And we're supposed to learn, you know, after each one of these encounters or experiences. And so I said all that to say this. I'm going to kind of keep this one short. I might make a second video later. I don't know. Depends on if I've got time. But in terms of bad experiences sort of influencing us to see the darkness first, like in that shadow example of the tree, versus the light, that's something that maybe we just have to work on. That's, I think, a big part of healing and overcoming what you might call trauma. And I say what you might call because some people think it has to be officially classified and meet certain criteria. But to me, if it has affected you or impacted you in a major way, in a negative manner, then it's trauma. It qualifies. Regardless of what it was, if a person or people intended it or not, or whatever, it's about the impact it had on you. And so I think a great indicator of a really good position in your healing journey, the latter stages, as in kind of being a sign that points to, hey, you've really healed. Like you're healed, or you're just about healed, or you're, you know, it's your way, you've made a ton of progress, okay? Is that you have a desire to consciously change how it's the negative or it's the dark things that get your attention first and hold your attention. Maybe you'll never totally change them getting your attention first, because again, that's a survival thing. But I think we can choose. This is where we have the beautiful faculty and free will of choice. We can choose to see it. Okay, there it is. Just like when I saw that tree, the shadow. I see it. And I did have to kind of look closer. You know, that's good too. It's a great metaphor. Just go with me. That's good too. But then switch over and notice what's in the light. Because what's in the light is going to be a full color spectrum as compared to a monotone shadow. And that's why I love metaphors and symbols. This is, to me, a wonderful example of what it means to live again. And when I say live again, I mean you are willing to experience a wide range of emotions. You're willing to experience a wide range of activities and things. And you're just, it's all about the flavor. It's all about the newness, you know, that just makes life versus being stagnant. I've in the past referred to this being stagnant and stuck kind of energy as the spirit of decay. Because to me, if something comes to a halt and there's no variation, it's just sort of solidified, okay? then, and my parents have like this really cool petrified wood. I was thinking of that, you know, how it used to be alive and now it's just not. It's kind of like that. When things come to a halt, then, you know, it's just a matter of time before it solidifies. And so it's the same thing with your muscles, especially as you're aging and you get older. So weird to say that, but hey, I'm there. So I have to make a conscious effort to move my body, because if I don't, it's going to get stiff, you know. And if you're, you know, I don't know, over 40, you know what I'm talking about. You have to move your body. It's kind of like that. And so, you know, if you don't move your body, your muscles, as the example of the spirit of decay, they start to decline. They start to reduce down, you know, and get smaller and waste away, you might say. It's the same thing with our, I don't want to call it chi, but like our life force energy. If that comes to a halt out of fear and putting self-preservation not only first, but letting that be the only thing we focus on, you know, because of these hard things, it's going to bring your whole life to a halt. And it's not something you can force either. I think you have to be in this little closed shell for some time, and that's fine. That's fine. And I've always valued sleeping in and snuggling up, especially now that winter's here, just kind of, or almost here. It's kind of back and forth here in the South. Summer, winter, back and forth. But I've always valued coziness and snuggling and relaxing. And I've also always loved walking and jogging too, but but the point here is you're gonna find yourself out of balance early on in your healing, and you can't force yourself to come way over here. But I think you can make your mind up and make a commitment to gently encouraging yourself and one another, right? Which we're supposed to do. We're supposed to walk together on this path of learning and growing and healing. We can kind of encourage one another to just do a little bit at a time. And what a blessing to be able to go at your own pace if you're able to. And if you're not able to, I hope you're able to at some point in the very near future, that you don't have someone else imposing a certain pace of life and a hurried approach and a stressful kind of energy and stuff. I hope that you're able to clear that out of the way, because then is when you can start to tune more from you go from looking out here at the external because it's demanding that you do so. You can start to turn the focus more inside of you, and that's when you're going to come into alignment, is a good way to put it, with that internal guiding light. And you're going to start to trust it more and more, because it's going to prove itself to you. It's going to prove itself time and again through your experiences. And they're going to feel supernatural and just really cool. And you're going to probably get closer to God, feel closer to God. I have. And that's going to become where you put your main focus. You still see all this out here, but see, it's not going to rock your boat anymore. It's not going to affect you anymore because you're focused in here. So again, things that are coming at us with an energy of like threat, they're going to sometimes, depending on, you know, our background and conditioning and stuff, sometimes that kind of tunes us to focusing out here. And then we just feel like we're just prey waiting to be pounced. And it's kind of like you can wind up stuck there. And I'm speaking from experience, and you don't know how to protect yourself. You just feel vulnerable. You feel vulnerable everywhere you go and everywhere you're around, because you're turned out here. Even if you're praying, it's like a survival thing. Again, this is all on the subconscious level. And so I just want to encourage you that if you still feel this way, you can, and if you want to get there, don't give up. You can turn that around into a focus more on this inner light that guides you, and you will feel even more protected. And you're not going to worry so much about how you might affect someone else out here, because ultimately, because a lot of these people that are controlling and dominating, they want to make you think that you're responsible for their contentment, their happiness, and other things, for their responsibilities too. You know, they're going to make you think that you're responsible for their stuff. And you have to learn, when they talk about boundaries, it's kind of like, that's how I see drawing boundaries, but it's more of a result to me of this kind of mechanism here, okay? Turning from our focus from out here into in here. And when you do that, you're going to fill your cup with the numinous, or God's Spirit, or through the Christian lens, the Holy Spirit. And that's going to clothe you in the armor of God. It's going to just, there's so many different ways I could explain this, but I hope that you understand what I'm trying to convey here. And then the natural result, the organic result, is just that all this other external stuff just sort of fades into the background. Okay? And just like that tree example, it's sort of like the light inside of you at that point is so bright that it's shining outwards now. You're shining your light outward instead of feeling like the lights are coming all onto you, you know, like, hey, you're under the microscope and, you know, you better do this or that or whatever. Instead, you have this light inside of you, and then that's going to make all this other stuff, it's all going to be illuminated. Like in the Bible, it talks about, you know, what's done in the dark will come into the light. It's kind of like that. And then you're not even going to see it much anymore. And it's going to kind of blend into the background, okay? And there's going to be such a huge, wide array of different things, this massive, in my example, color spectrum, that you can then choose what you focus on out here. When you do look out here, you can choose. Yeah, you see that. Yeah, you see that person, and you see this one, but no, okay. Because you have that inner confidence, which is a result, right, of getting aligned in here. And that part is what took me the most time to trust it. It was always there, I would say, most of my life, but I was misjudging it as my own self versus truly a part of God who sees all. I mean, obviously, his judgment is going to be a whole lot better than mine. So once I realized, wait a minute, this is not the me part inside. This is the him part. This is the God part. Then I started trusting it. And then I started seeing the results of that. And then all this other stuff was a result of me doing that. I hope this encourages you. I hope it gives you some things to think about, chew on. I hope you enjoyed it. I thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. And I'll be back as soon as I can. And I hope that you have a beautiful day. And I'll see you again very soon.